My husband stole my ideas and cheated on me while I was building a life for us both. My name is Serena. I'm 32 years old and a family therapist. I help people understand their emotions, heal their pasts, and find balance in their relationships. My job is about fixing the broken parts in others' lives, holding up a mirror to them, sometimes walking with them through the hardest, most painful moments of their lives. But I couldn't fix my own relationship, because the person across from me wasn't just any husband. He was a calculated, cold, and patient enemy. It took me years to realize that. I met James exactly 10 years ago. We worked at the same clinic, both young, eager, and idealistic. Back then, he was charming, smart, and impressive. I never imagined working with him would fill a missing piece in both my professional and personal life. Within the first few weeks, a special bond formed between us. At work, he wasn't just a colleague, he became a confidant, a friend, and slowly, we started falling for each other. Every morning we couldn't wait to come to work together. Our coffee breaks lasted longer, and we'd take notes together on shared files. There was an invisible energy between us while we worked, and people around us could feel it. We got lost in that energy. We dreamed of opening a clinic together. I took care of the inner workings, organizing, handling the paperwork, all the boring admin stuff. He dealt with the clients. "You're the brains behind this," he'd tell me. "Together, we make a whole." Those words became the foundation of my life because I believed in him. I trusted him so much that I signed documents without even reading them. I accepted everything. I was blind in love. The first years were beautiful. The clinic was small but peaceful. A tiny waiting room, an office with wooden shelves filled with books, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen in the mornings. I still miss that atmosphere. Our clients were few, but they genuinely cared about us. Slowly, we started to grow. We hired our first receptionist. Then an accountant joined. Appointments started to fill up fast. We were running back and forth between couples therapy, family counseling, and individual sessions. We had finally started living the life we used to dream about. Together, we felt strong. It really felt like we could get through anything, as long as we had each other. The more we believed in ourselves, the more clients we attracted. Helping people together brought us so much joy. I felt like I had everything I ever wanted in life. I was going to spend the rest of my life with the men I loved. I was one lucky woman. James always complimented my beauty and intelligence, but what he admired the most was my strength. He was proud of how strong I was. He would always tell people about it. "Oh, Serena, she's an incredibly strong woman." If I had just a little bit of her strength, we'd laugh when he said that. Years passed, the clinic expanded, and things settled into a routine. What we built together in the beginning gradually became known by James's name. People started calling it James's Clinic. At first, I wasn't upset about that because the success was ours, his and mine. But James began to change. He stopped bringing me morning coffee and stopped looking me in the eye. He started going to meetings alone and would be away on work trips on weekends. Our conversations became fewer and fewer. Eating together, laughing, confiding, all slowly faded away. We were drifting apart, but I was still trying to see the men I loved. One day he told me, "There's a seminar abroad about new therapy techniques. I'm going with Mandy." Mandy was our receptionist, 11 years younger than James, and lately, she was always hanging around him. I asked, "Why are you going with the receptionist?" He said, "She's really good at connecting with people. She'll help out. Besides, you've got a lot on your plate." A knot formed in my stomach, but I pushed it down. I even laughed at my own paranoid scenarios in my head to calm myself. "Don't be paranoid," I told myself. I still trusted James. So he went, but the emptiness growing inside me only got bigger. Day by day, it grew. When James came back from the trip, he barely spoke to me. He locked himself in his home office, the one he always used for work outside the clinic. He told me the seminar had inspired him to start writing a book about modern therapy techniques, he said, a book that would change everything. I wanted to be excited for him, to feel proud, but something felt off. One evening, as I passed by his office door, I heard his voice. He was on the phone, I paused when I heard her name. Thanks to your support, Mandy. I know I can do this, he said with a soft chuckle. This book is going to be dedicated to you. Dedicated to Mandy, not his wife, not the woman who had been by his side building everything from scratch, but the receptionist who, by the sound of his voice, was clearly much more than that now. He laughed in a way I hadn't heard in years. Not with me, at least. I stood frozen behind the door, the words echoing in my ears. When this book launches, it's going to make waves. I started to wonder what waves he meant. Professional ones or personal? So one day, I asked him directly, "What's going on between you and Mandy?" A clear, honest question. But James was caught off guard. He gave me a smug little smile and shrugged. "Jealousy doesn't suit a psychologist like you, Serena. Maybe you should do some inner work on your own insecurities." Dismissed, just like that. He brushed me off like my feelings were nothing but irrational noise. And you know what? At first, I believed him. I really did start to doubt myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was reading too much into their so-called friendship. Was I becoming insecure, paranoid, controlling? So I did what I always told my clients to do. I turned inward. I showed up to the clinic every day, saw my clients, and in my free time, I journaled. I reflected. I questioned everything. Was I losing my sense of self? Was I still the strong, confident woman he used to praise? I started meditating again, reading psychology books, trying to realign. Meanwhile, James was working non-stop on the book. And yes, he kept taking Mandy's calls, sometimes even on speaker, but he didn't try to hide it, so I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, it really was just professional. They only talked about chapters and deadlines, book tours and strategies, so I made a decision. I would support him. I would stand beside him. I would be the good wife, the supportive partner I'd always promised to be, even if I had to silence the screaming voice inside me. So one evening, after dinner, I asked James about the book. "What's it about?" I said gently. "I'd love to read some of it, maybe offer feedback, both as your wife and your colleague." He swirled the wine in his glass, then downed the rest of it. "Oh, of course," he said casually. "I definitely want to talk about it, just not tonight." He said he was too tired, walked straight into the bedroom, turned off the light, and went to sleep, just like that. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My husband, the man who once read me every sentence of his drafts, had become a stranger under the same roof. Still, I promised myself I'd try again, tomorrow, but every time I brought up the book, he brushed it off. "Soon, babe. It's not ready. Too many edits." Instead, he started asking things like, "What's for dinner tonight?" Or, "The house is a mess, Serena." Like the cooking, the cleaning, the emotional labor, all of it was my job now. One day, I gently reminded him, "I work too, James. I run sessions. I'm a psychologist." He rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, please don't start with the 'I'm a working woman' to speech." I just stood there, frozen. What did that even mean? This wasn't the man I married. And to make things worse, at the clinic, Mandy was spending long hours in James's office. She'd walk past the reception desk all bubbly and bright, tossing compliments like confetti. "Oh, Chapter 3 was phenomenal, Mr. James. You're my idol." He was letting her read the book, giving her access to his thoughts, his process, his passion, while I, his wife, his partner, his supposed other half, was left in the dark. He was slipping away from me, one word at a time, and something inside me snapped. I was done being the afterthought. One afternoon, while James was out, some mysterious meeting that didn't include me, I made a decision. I walked into his study. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was crazy, but I needed to know. I needed to read the book that had become more important to him than our marriage. The room was a mess, scattered notes, crumpled paper, ink-stained coffee cups, like a storm had passed through his mind and left behind the wreckage. And then I saw it. His laptop, still open. The manuscript untitled, Docs, was right there on the screen. I hesitated, listening for any sound outside the door. Then slowly, with trembling fingers, I began to read, and the more I read, the more shocked I became. These lines, these paragraphs, they were mine, my thoughts, my words. The ones I had written quietly in my journal late at night, those pages filled with raw emotion, therapeutic insight, and reflections from my own journey. He had stolen them, word for word. It hit me like a tidal wave. 6 months ago, I remembered I had been scribbling in my journal before bed. Every night, my only outlet. James had asked what I was writing, and I'd read him a few entries. Back then, he gave me a half smile and said, not bad. If you polish those ideas, they might actually make sense. I thought he was just teasing. Now I realized he had been scouting. He stole my words, my heart, my voice, and put his name on it. My breath caught in my chest. Rage surged through me. And that's when I saw it, buried under the mess of papers, my journal. Right there, in his office. I reached for it, my hands shaking, and as I pulled it free, something fell. Soft, glossy, deliberately hidden. I bent down, and what I saw made the world tilt. Photographs. Mandy, in lingerie, sultry, intimate, smiling straight at the camera. My stomach turned, my knees buckled. Oh my God. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. James had stolen my clinic, my words, my life. And now, he was sleeping with Mandy, the receptionist, and I had become the fool in my own life. I was spiraling. My thoughts were loud, wild, and chaotic, crashing against each other inside my skull. I felt like I was losing my mind. I stormed out of the office, out of the house, pacing the halls like a ghost caught between fury and heartbreak. I needed to do something. I needed to ruin James. I needed to destroy his shiny little career and expose the affair with Mandy. They had taken everything from me. But how? I couldn't think straight. Not like this. And I knew something my husband clearly didn't. Revenge is best served calm. So I grabbed my coat, stormed out the door, and headed straight for the park near our house. I didn't stop to breathe. I just walked, fast, focused, determined. With every step, I felt the heat simmer into clarity. The burn in my legs grounded me. And somewhere between the third and fourth lap around the trail, I had a plan. It hit me like lightning. James had mentioned the name of the publishing house he was working with. They loved the first few chapters of his book. They'd said they were excited to see the full draft. Well, guess what? I was the author, the soul behind those chapters. Me, the ideas, the structure, the clinical metaphors, all mine. And James? He had no idea how badly he'd just messed up. When he returned that evening, I greeted him with the same soft smile I always wore, as if nothing had changed, as if I hadn't just uncovered the biggest betrayal of my life. But before I could play my part, I had work to do. Step 1. Protect my proof. I had to photocopy my journal, the one he'd stolen ideas from, the one that held every thought he'd passed off as his own. So I placed it back exactly where I'd found it. Those disgusting photos of Mandy, right back in their place. When James walked in and began his usual routine of complaining about the mess, I nodded, murmured an apology, and let him retreat to his writing room. I headed to our bedroom, pulled the covers over myself like nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, I was at war. While he typed in the other room, I began my counterattack. I softly read my handwritten pages into my laptop's speech-to-text software, converting every original word into a digital file. He didn't know anything about this feature. He barely knew how to restart his phone. I was racing against time, against his lies. When I heard his footsteps approach, I hid the pages, shut my laptop, and sank into the pillows. Eyes closed, breathing calm, just a sleeping, supportive wife. Once he was deep asleep, snoring softly beside me, I slipped out of bed, moving like a shadow. I tiptoed to the balcony, laptop in hand. 4 hours. That's how long it took to digitally copy every stolen word. And when I finished, I had everything I needed to destroy him. At first light, I sent the email to the publisher. Subject regarding the manuscript from James, your new author. Hello, my name is Serena, the wife of psychologist James, your future author. What you've received from him are actually my original writings, taken from my personal journals without my permission. Before he sends you anything further, I'm submitting the full original manuscript, written entirely by me. Warm regards, Serena L. Phase 1 complete. Now it was time for Phase 2, exposing his affair with Mandy. All I needed was James's phone. And as expected, it wasn't even password protected. Rookie mistake. Finding the messages didn't take long. They were right there. Pages of flirtatious texts, heart emojis, and late-night promises. But the worst, the photos. Shameless and undeniably real. I sent screenshots to my email, then printed everything out, hard copies in hand. Undeniable evidence. James was already at the kitchen table by the time I walked in, waiting for his breakfast. Like always, instead, I placed the papers in front of him. No words, no warning, just truth. He stared at them, eyes scanning, his face drained of color. And when he looked up, I didn't give him a chance to speak. You'll withdraw from the clinic partnership by the end of the day, I said calmly. That business, it's no longer yours. It's mine. It always was. You just wore it like a costume. If you don't agree, I tapped the stack of photos. I will ruin you. He blinked. You don't have to make this a big deal. I actually laughed. A big deal. You stole my work, my trust, my life. He didn't argue, so I handed him a vacation suitcase we had packed for a trip that would never happen and walked out. Where did I go? Back to the park. My thinking place. This time, though, I wasn't pacing in pain. I was waiting, eagerly waiting for the editor to call James, and for that moment his world would start to crumble. But me? I didn't feel rage anymore. I felt clarity. Power. For far too long, I had let him manipulate me, gaslight me, make me question my worth. But not today. Today, I had taken back control of my life, my voice, and my work. And maybe the best part, the manuscript, the one I wrote from my heart, had actually been liked by a publisher, a real publisher. I was good. I was better than good. After a calming walk through the trees, I returned home. James was in the foyer, suitcase in hand, about to leave. And that's when his phone rang. I didn't need to ask who it was. The tightness in his jaw, the way his fingers tensed, the fake smile in his voice, all confirmed it. He picked up. Hi, this is James speaking. Pause. And then his face fell, from pink to pale, and then deep crimson. A misunderstanding. I see. There must be a mistake. He was stammering, knees weak, pride crushed. He hung up the phone slowly, and then he turned to look at me. One last glance. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile either. I simply stared back, calm, confident, undeniably strong, because if there was shame in the room, it wasn't mine. And with that, he walked out. And I walked into his old office, now my sanctuary. It hit me. All those years, James had a study, a place to write, to think, to grow. Me? I worked from the kitchen table, or perched on the bed with my laptop balanced on my knees. There was never space for me. Until now. Now I had an entire clinic in my name, and a workspace that finally reflected me, my taste, my soul, my strength. The first thing I did, got rid of every piece of furniture he'd ever picked. His desk? Gone. The towering bookshelf that only held his favorite authors? Donated. I repainted the walls, put in soft lighting, added a plant. It wasn't just a room anymore. It was a beginning. I sat down at my new desk, fingers poised over the keyboard. I was ready to write my story, on my terms. And then my phone rang. It was the editor I'd emailed just days before. My heart skipped. Miss Serena, he said, voice warm. First of all, I'm so sorry for what you've been through. But I have to say, your writing, it moved us deeply. It's real. It's powerful. He paused, We'd like to publish it. If you're interested, we'd love to offer you a book deal. I didn't cry. I didn't even scream. I just sat there in stunned silence, smiling, because that was the moment everything changed. I signed the contract the very next day. My first book was finally happening. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming. My name is Serena. I'm 32 years old and a family therapist. My husband stole my ideas and cheated on me with our receptionist. But I turned all the bad things that happened to me into benefits. And now, I am a writer too. So now, I want to ask you, what do you think of my story? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done?